a little bit excited when I've left them in there for a little bit longer. Hello. Sorry, forgot about you all. Scrap bucket time, huh? Yeah, you like the scrap bucket, don't you? That's your favourite, hey? Yeah, we go where the scrap bucket goes. It's like in Toy Story, the claw. Alright. Morsels. Oh, macaroni, rice. Everything a growing chicken needs, eh? Hey my friends, how are you today? I'm still a little bit sick, but I thought I'd crank out another video. This is of course, the Civivi Primatrox. What a name, right? Like the cat was walking across the keyboard that day, wasn't it? Jeez, Primatrox. Okay, it is about the weirdest name for about the most boring neutral looking knife I think I've had from Civivi since the button lock Elementum, which was in itself not exactly a revolutionary design, but popular nonetheless. And in fact, simple, elegant, I suppose. Unsurprising knives probably are a bit of a flagship for Civivi. They've got lots of, sort of slight iterations on knives like this, very similar to this, that do about what this does. And yeah, basically you can count on Civivi to give yourself a new knife fix without having to absolutely break the bank. The knife's going to come, it's going to be, pretty well made. It's going to be made of like about the best materials for the price, of course. It's going to cost you about in Australia $100, in America $50 or $60. And yeah, generally speaking, you can set your watch to Civivi. You really can. Trust is a weird word to use in like a system where companies are just trying to, get us hooked on the dopamine e-commerce loop, I suppose. But I think people are sort of at least used to Civivi in the knife game now, and accepting of Civivi. We have come to terms with Civivi and the monolith that we and Civivi really is. These guys feel like they're putting out like 20 new knives a month, and this is one of them for whatever month this came out in, that's for sure. So the Primatrox, I needed some content, so I said yes to some Civivi reviews because it's been a while since I've had much come across my table, that's for sure. And yeah, as such, I've taken it and used it for all of my general house stuff. I've, of course, manufactured some cutting scenarios to just actually feel how the knife cuts and some things that I might not do every day. And then, of course, I've resharpened it entirely, and I've done a rope cut test. So you'll be able to see how that goes in this video as well. So keep watching and learn all about the Civivi Primatrox. So the blade cuts really well out of the factory, came with a very nice sharp edge, probably about 19 degrees per side, 20 degrees per side, edge apex there. Cut very nicely. In my standard sort of household tasks, did really, really well. It's got a very thin behind the edge grind. It's a 3mm thick blade with a flat grind from about 3/4 of the way up the face of the blade. And yeah, as such, it's got a lot of sort of time to really thin out behind the edge, and it's pretty nice behind the edge. When a knife is thin behind the edge, it means even when it goes a little bit dull on the absolute apex, it means that you still get a lot of PSI when you push down on things, so it'll still cut, a bit better than something that's a bit fatter. So pretty good overall blade geometries and grinds. It's a very typical looking blade. It is like the default Bob Loveless drop point style blade. They've gone and gussied it up with a little bit of a swedge there for some weight reduction and perhaps some tip acuity and whatever. And as such, it does have a pretty decent little tip that you can certainly use to get your little cuts started, slide under the steak, so to speak, as you may have seen earlier. So, overall blade is great. The Nitro V steel, well, how did it go when I tested it? Let's have a quick look.
Do it.
Reviewing a knife that hasn't got much going on. And by that I don't mean it's bad, I just mean it's pretty standard. It's not a bad thing necessarily, and everything is built quite well. But the knife is pretty boring, it makes me wish I was using something else. It's hard to maintain a creative process when the subject of your creation is pretty darn standard. Reviewing a knife that hasn't got much going on. And by that I don't mean it's bad, I just mean it's pretty standard. It's not a bad thing necessarily, and everything is built quite...
Yeah, 400 cuts is excellent for Nitro V steel. I think it's probably the best result I've had on a non-powdered steel on that test, apart from D2, I guess. D2 can get in the 450s, but yeah, really, really well-performing steel, without a doubt. The Nitro V on this, 59 to 61, perhaps it's closer to 61. But yeah, my edge test, it isn't perfect, but it definitely shows you that this guy will cut a lot of, pretty gnarly stuff before you're going to have to really resharpen it. Because even now, it's not dull, it's just got a slight flat spot on the blade there where it was doing basically the bulk of all that cutting compacted into like an inch-long area of blade. So it's going to last you a good long time between sharpenings if you don't like sharpening your knives. But if you do like sharpening your knives, even better, because Nitro V is a great sharpening steel. Sharpens really well. Pleasant to sharpen, pleasant to deal with. There's a reason that a lot of knife makers are using Nitro V these days. And the AEBL and the 14C28N triangle of really good, well-regarded, but non-powdered and fairly inexpensive blade steels. Handle ergonomics-wise, yes, the shape is neutral, and so yes, it is rather neutral in the hand. However, I would prefer if the scales went all the way to the edge of the liners. Now that is not perhaps something that everyone notices, but when I grip down on a knife that has the protruding liners, I kind of feel the channel a bit more than if I'm gripping down on a knife that just has the handle scales flush. So say a paramilitary 2, right? My Crewwear paramilitary 2. Here it is. Whoa, don't fall over now. Ease up. You guys been drinking? Wowzers. Anyway, the paramilitary 2's, I'll do a different angle for this. It's flush, and so you've got more against your hand. You don't feel like the groove, the channel from both sides. You can always, of course, feel the channel inside your thumb, on the inside where the actual blade is, obviously the handle is split into to accommodate the folded blade. Obviously, you feel that channel, but with this, you feel it protruding on both sides. It's like a two little bump, 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 bump. And yeah, as such, bearing down on it, not the best long-term, like hand in your like knife in your hand all day sort of comfort. It's not bad, but it's just something I thought I'd bring up. Just one of the little things. The other thing I don't love about it, and I guess this is grip or blade or whatever, but, and again, I know I'm bloody harping on about the paramilitary 2, but Spyderco has a forward finger choil in their paramilitary 2, and it's a gripping choil. So it's not really one that's for helping with sharpening, rather than it's one for putting a finger on to be able to choke up for that detail work. This one has a choil, but it's more of a sharpening finger choil. So it's kind of they've gone quite long if you're thinking of it just for sharpening. So then you're kind of tempted, well, maybe I can put my finger in there. And you sort of can, but wouldn't recommend. I would have preferred that either made it a little bit longer or given you more blade and made it a little bit shorter. Sort of just a little bit too in the middle and not long enough that you can really comfortably use it for, a fine work finger choil for a long period of time. Especially if you keep it very sharp like me and sharpen all the way up to that edge there, yeah, you might be finding yourself just sort of rolling your knuckle just on the blade there and giving yourself a little bit of a callus at the very least, if not a cut. So that's the other little niggle that I would have with the knife. But look, overall, I mean, as you would expect from a knife that looks like this, what can you really say? It's highly competent. It's very much a good knife. It's made well. The steel is, I would say, very above average. So that's definitely something that kind of stretches it up. The handle material, the wood scale stuff, it's very much, there's been a lot of human intervention in this wood, I think. I think it's very much a stabilized, almost like it feels almost plasticky feeling. I know it's wood. I know when you stabilize wood, you're using lots of resins and chemicals and things like that. But it's, it's something. It's got like a little bit of texture to it, maybe not quite micarta, but yeah, it looks interesting at the very least, like a dark, rich, woody appearance. So I guess that's another sort of slightly, unique thing to add to the what really you almost need these days is a forgettability meter for these Civivi knives. They put out so many, and I guess I'll probably remember the Steel Performance for a while, and I'll probably remember it's one of the knives that they use this
Gebrusche.
wood on. But overall, quite the neutral little beastie, isn't it? Alrighty, so who is this for? This would be a good knife for someone as a gift, like as a knife for someone who's not really had a knife. If you're looking to buy a knife for someone, you don't want to spend too much money, but you want to make sure what they get is good. Pretty good starting point. What about for the knife guy or for the collector? This to me feels like a knife that you buy for the sake of just buying another knife. I don't think you're going to get anything of a conversation starter or point with other knife fans about this knife. It doesn't really do anything memorable or unique. It is, a very well executed knife with a good variant of the Nitro V steel in the blade. Obviously, it's, I'm appreciating how it's performed for me in my rope cut test and whatever. That is, again, a very specific way of how I enjoy a knife. I don't think you will really remember you own this knife after 6 months, especially if you're buying, enough knives that you are, trying a lot of different ones and whatnot. But if you're after something very capable and you're after something perhaps for a smaller collection or for someone who is not really, completely 100% into knives just yet, probably a pretty good way to start. You're going to get quality. You're going to get a good action out of the box. It's going to have those immediately impressive things for people, especially for new knife people, probably like the wood handles, makes them feel a bit more traditional style. Going to like how the blade flips out and how it sort of slides closed and how it's all sort of very well assembled and whatnot. But I think for knife guys, people like us who are watching the videos, you're probably going to get all you need out of this knife just by watching a few films about it, especially if you own a few other Civivis that look vaguely like this already. So that's the thoughts on the Civivi Primatrox. Never getting used to that. Overall, has its place, but I just feel like it's not going to be in everyone's favorites of the year, that's for sure. Unless you're looking at like top 10 most safe knives to buy or most neutral knives to buy. Because I guess, and you know what, that's an arm of the hobby, I'm sure. Like top 10 most inoffensive, standard, everyday knives that you can get for $110 or less. Yeah, it'd be on a few of those top 10 lists for sure. But instead, in terms of like top 10 knives that made me excited this year, I don't know. Don't know, guys. All right, that's the video. Thank you for watching. It's always a bit of a tricky review when you've got something that's not super unique or super, interesting, let's just say, as competent as it was. The next knife, though, from Civivi that I'll be reviewing is this little guy here, which is like a very much modern flipper, Barlow, thin blade, slicey. It's basically everything the knife just now wasn't. It's got a whole lot of character and some interesting features on it, so that might be a bit more up your alley if you're after something with a bit more character. So stay tuned for that, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Take it away, Basil.